Give it your all when you're dancing on me. I wanna see if you can give me some more.
All right, man. So tell me, where do you make your money?
Well, first of all, my name is Doug Douglas. I am a talent acquisition expert and RPO expert for Manpower Group Solutions, one of the biggest staffing agencies in the entire world.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. And tell me, what exactly do you do there?
So I'm doing sales for mid-sized to up to 10,000 employees, companies that are looking for assistance with some of their recruiting and outsourcing of some of those hard to fill positions that they have. So
awesome. And tell me, how'd you get started in this?
Yeah, I owned my own business before that. I owned a graphic design company. I planned an event in Austin. The CEO from a recruiting firm was at that event. He came up to me afterwards and he just said, "What do you do?" I guess I did something that impressed him. He said, "What do you do?" And so I told him, and he said, "Man, come over. Let's have lunch tomorrow. I want to tell you all about recruiting." And he said, and then when I did, he said, "Man, I want to teach you everything that I know about recruiting, and I want you to close your business and come join us."
Yeah.
And so I did. And so I was there for 5 years, 7 promotions in 5 years, and went from an entry-level person to a recruiter, senior recruiter, team lead, account manager, sales, RPO implementation, and then management over all of that kind of stuff. So I've been around it for about 20 years now.
Nice. Awesome. And how did you elevate yourself? And like, what inspired you to be in that industry? Were you doing something before, or how did you kind of get into it?
No, so it was kind of a perfect match for me at that point in time. I'm extremely competitive, and recruiting, man, if you get around other recruiters, they all think they're the best, right? And so it becomes this competition, between each other, and we're all trying to outdo each other, especially in the firm that we were in. And it was kind of played up that way too.
Yeah.
And so if one person had success, man, everybody was gunning for them the next month and trying to take them down and beat them and that sort of thing. And so I definitely bought into that environment, and it kind of fueled my fire, and lots of sleepless nights. It was long days. I was texting with the CEO at 3 and 4 in the morning, and he wouldn't sleep at all during the week. And by the time you get to Friday, his eyes are bloodshot and just barely hanging on. But that type of environment.
Wow, nice. And tell me, so how important is it to have the right players in the right place, right? And in terms of recruiting,
Yeah, so that's the thing that I think has kind of set me apart from my peers, is that I'm really specific in the way that I screen candidates and look for candidates. Was that it wasn't just about skills and experience, but it was also about their personality and their attitude and their work habits and things like that go into it that I think other people kind of ignore.
Yeah.
And so when I would meet with a hiring manager and get the download on what they were looking for in a person, I'd ask about their team, and I'd talk about, how much do y'all joke around with each other? Do you all work late nights? Do you come into the office all the time?
Yeah.
Are you at home working? And that way, when I'm screening people, I'm finding people that'll fit into that and not be ostracized, because of that. So, so just attention to every little detail that they talk about and what goes into making a great employee.
Awesome. And so tell me, in the business operation aspect, how did you start your own business? I heard you had a consulting business as well. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I was at that first recruiting firm, after I've been there for a while, the opportunities came to me first through HR.com, and then eventually through SHRM, so Society of Human Resource Management, which is big. That's a major global player right there. And they heard me do some webcasts for HR.com. And they came and they said, "Hey, would you just do something for us? Let's do a trial, see how it goes." The trial turned into 3 or 4 different webcasts. I had the same producer for all of those. At the end of the 5th one, I think, I just said, "Hey, Mike, am I doing okay? I know you do surveys at the end of this, and they score me and give you feedback. Am I doing okay? Am I top? Am I bottom? Where am I? And he said, oh, I should have been giving you the results and I haven't done it. And he said, most of the time we're thrilled if we find someone that's top 5%, you know, that we'll bend over backwards and we'll do whatever we need to. Whenever you want to talk on a topic, we'll do that and we'll promote it and run it and everything. He said, you're not top 5%. And I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, you're top 5. I was like, what? And he goes, top 5 people. I was like, so I'm one of the top 5 most sought after and highly scored people there. And he said, yeah, exactly. And I was like, wow, that's pretty humbling and incredible. But I did that for years. And so I would do a webcast. I'd have about 4,500 talent acquisition and HR people that would tune in and listen to me. Every time I'd finish on LinkedIn, I'd get about 500 new requests from people that had questions about, hey, how would you solve this problem? And we've got this going on. Is there any kind of solution you could offer to that? Do you contract out? Could we bring you in and have you fix this for us? And so it opened the door for me to have all these opportunities, but I was working full time at that point in time. So I couldn't do that. I was diagnosed with cancer at one point during that. And so it gave me this break where I was able to go from my previous job to not having a job and recovering to coming back and trying to figure out how life and work are supposed to fit together. And so I started my own consulting firm so I could work as much as I wanted and on what I wanted and with whom I wanted. And so I used all those leads that I got from the webcast. And so that opened all kinds of doors for me everywhere.
Awesome. I love that. So essentially you built your book of business over the years. You took that and you kind of, put it all together. Then you started your own business so that way you can put yourself first, and really be more in control of your time in a way, right?
It's interesting. I kind of was an influencer before there was a thing called an influencer.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I was doing it 20 years ago before everybody had heard about it.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was kind of what I do so that people can more identify with what I used to do.
Yeah.
By thinking of it that way.
That's a good connection, man. Do you have any of those videos still up on the internet, or is it kind of
the internet never dies, right?
The internet never dies. Yeah,
you can't get rid of it no matter what. So it's out there, and there's still people that are in HR roles today that still remember me from those years past. I'm trying to get back into it a little bit now. I'm taking some offers, here and there to go speak at different conferences and events and webcasts and podcasts and that sort of thing. And so, I'm interested in getting back into some of that. I don't want it to consume every part of me, but
of course.
But as time allows, I'd love to be able to do that.
Awesome, bro. And tell us, so how did you get started into the modeling industry? Give us a little backstory of how you got into it.
Yeah. So I owned a graphic design company for about 10 years. I was doing magazine ads for different national magazines and that sort of thing. I had a young daughter that was growing up. When she hit middle school, her and her friends wanted to start doing photo shoots, so they wanted to hire a photographer. And I'm like, nah, I think I got this. And so I started doing shoots with them, and over the years, they just kept getting better and better. My daughter was a basketball player. She played for 10 years. And so when she was a senior and she was about to leave and head off to college, it hit me how quiet my house was about to be. And I told my wife, I said, I got to find something that's going to keep me busy. And if it could help pay for school, that would be helpful too. And I said, I think I'm good enough at photography. People will pay for it. And so I started doing that. And it was just like senior pictures and family pictures and people and their pets and, that kind of stuff. And so one of the things that I did, and it was kind of by accident, I did a shoot with this really popular high school girl that was like the homecoming queen and the class president and the head cheerleader. And she was like the person everybody knows, right? And so at the end of the shoot, wasn't planned, but I just said, hey, if you'll send your friends to me, I'll give you 10% of whatever they pay for their fee. And she was like, done, I'll do that. And so for the next few months, every weekend, I was stacked with all of her friends doing photo shoots for me. And I was like, man, she's doing all my sales for me. I don't have to do anything. And I'm an older guy. And so it takes away the creepy factor because they got someone that they can talk to and make sure that I'm legit and, that sort of thing. And so I was like, man, I just need to replicate that at every school in the Austin area. And so I did. So I put spokesmodels in every school one of the interesting things was that after their first or second shoot, they looked like they were pro models. So that's not normal, right? And maybe some of them are that way, but all of ours were that way. And so we got together, and the girls were like, "Man, this is really cool. Maybe modeling is an avenue for me to pursue down the road." And I'm thinking, man, they're really good. I don't want to lose them, for my team. And so we decided that an agency was the way to go. Eventually, it turned into fashion, and those were the doors that started to open up for us. So we started doing Fashion Week events and hitting the runway and that sort of thing. All of that was new for me. All I knew was photography. I didn't know anything about walking runways. But eventually, I became the casting director and the backstage manager for some of the Fashion Week shows, and knew I learned everything that I could about runway and how to teach it and get people to be their best on that. And so we're starting our 10th year now, and here we are, and we've kind of built this reputation of being some of the best runway models in Texas. And our focus is a little different than other agencies, and we'll probably get into that a little bit later. But that's how I got into the modeling stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome, and that's cool. So a question that I have, based off of for the channel that we have, it's an entrepreneurs podcast, and we focus on business structure and mentality, right? So tell me a little bit about the mentality you had when you were coming up, when you were getting everything together, right? And when you were trying to build your team or try to organize the systems of your business. Did you kind of study that, or did you kind of just pick it up on the go as you were, elevating in your business? Yeah.
So the advantage that I had when I started the modeling agency was that I'd already started a couple of other businesses before that.
Oh, okay.
And so this wasn't my first rodeo. I've been down the road and I learned a few lessons along the way. By doing that. So I owned a graphic design company, like I said, for 10 years. And so that did really well. I had a consulting firm for several years as well. And so I knew how to start a business. I knew how to recruit people, to come into that. I knew how to do sales and get new clients and that sort of thing. Obviously, it was just the modeling industry was something that was totally different for me and trying to figure that part out.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. And now going a little bit into the fashion side of things, what sets your agency apart from other agencies?
There's lots of things. There's three big ways, and then there's some smaller things that I just kind of took for granted over the years. But I've noticed that they're kind of unique as well. Yeah. So the top three things would be, most agencies, they sign and sign and sign and sign and sign, and they may not even know how many models they actually have signed and under contract. For me, I limit how many models I have on my team, and the max number that I'll ever work with is 40 models. Oh, wow. And so I don't want to be big. I could have 400. I could maybe have 4,000 if I wanted to, but I don't think you can do it the right way and have that many people involved. And so a good example of that is there's a young lady out of Dallas that I met recently. I followed her on Instagram, and then I met her at one of the runway shows that I came to. And her photo shoots were absolutely incredible, right? But then I watched her walk, and she didn't know how to walk. Oh. But she had signed with this agency in Dallas, and so I went up to her and I introduced myself, and I was like, "Man, I've been following you. Love your pictures. They're incredible. But what's the deal with Runway?" And she said, "I signed with this agency. Everybody wanted to use me, and they just told me to go figure it out." And so they didn't teach her anything about how to do that. Yeah. And I think a lot of agencies do that along the way, and they just expect people, especially if they can make money off of them, they just throw them out there before they're ready, and they don't know what to do. So then they get stuck in this bad habit kind of syndrome where they don't know how to fix things or whatever. So we limit how many we work with, and then the biggest part of that is that we give every one of our models individual attention and coaching every single month. Oh, wow. And so every model on my team has to give me 3 hours a month. Wow. Where they come and most of them do that all in one day, right? So they'll give me a Saturday morning or something like that, and I'll spend 3 hours with them when we work on posing, on portfolio work, on runway, interviewing skills, all of those kinds of things that come into play for that. The second way that we're different, and this is a big one, and it throws people off until they hear the reasons why. The second thing is our models work with me, and they don't work with anybody but me. I'm the only photographer they shoot with.
Oh, wow.
I'm the only runway coach that they work with. And so I have to look at it as the models are my investment, right? And our purpose or our goal is that we want to develop models to a world-class level, help them sign with the big major agencies around the world. And we want that to happen as quickly as possible. But that's not the end goal, is just to get them signed there. We want them to be able to compete for work immediately when they sign. So if they're not ready to go compete with Gigi and Bella and all of those girls, they're not ready, right? And so those are the jobs that we're going for. And so we have to make sure that they have the development and the right personality and the right outlook on business, and they can handle themselves, and they know how to communicate and negotiate and do all of those sorts of things, in addition to the posing and the runway walks and the things that everybody sees, right?
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, I work with all of our models, and every opportunity to do a photo shoot is a coachable moment for us. Every runway coach, as soon as the show's over, we have a team meeting and we go over everything that they just did on the runway, and we make sure, because it's fresh on everybody's mind.
Exactly.
And so again, other agencies don't offer anything like that. And so we're dramatically different than that. And our models just get better, faster than all the other models at all the other different agencies.
So essentially what your focus is with these agencies is that you're focusing more on the quality, not the quantity, right? Is that the kind of idea?
Yeah, so the development piece. So look, we're in Texas. I'm not going to become a millionaire owning a modeling agency in Texas. Right? Everybody wants everything for free. Let me use Austin as an example. There's probably 10,000 models in Austin, Texas.
Wow.
8,000 of them will work for free.
Wow.
So the other 2,000 are screwed, right? Because they have to lower their rates so far that it's even feasible for somebody to consider hiring them when there's somebody else that might be 60 or 70% as good as them, but they're free.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It makes sense.
And so you're never going to make the money here. So that's not our game. All the other agencies here, they want to go and they're looking for, how do I make money? How do I get it fast? And they're going to try to milk it for as long as they possibly can.
Exactly, yeah.
My goal is to get them signed with the big agencies as fast as they can, where they make big money, and then I get a percentage of that coming back.
Yeah, smart. So that's a good point for the business structure. So you're kind of positioning yourself in a way to where you're giving as much value as you can right now as an investment for the future, where you'll get a bigger expected return, right? Is that the kind of mentality you have behind?
Yeah. So when I say that they only work with me,
Yeah.
that's part of that is that they're my investment. And so, look, if you signed with me as a model, you wouldn't, because I only work with female models, right? But if you were to sign with me, you're my investment, right? And and we're going for this goal to make you world class and to get you signed and get you working at the next level, right? Along the way, you're going to screw up and I'm going to get pissed off about it. And along the way, I'm going to screw up and you're going to get pissed off about it. And we're going to realize we're just humans. It wasn't intentional, and we're not trying to sabotage anything here. And we forgive each other and we keep moving along towards that goal. What I can't have happen is some third-party person come into the equation that's not in line with what our goals are. And they're just trying to get likes and follows and views and all of that kind of stuff. And one picture literally could ruin 3 years of work that I put into a model. If the wrong picture were to get posted out there, if the wrong video were to get posted out there, it could ruin 3 years of my investment into a model. And I can't do that. So I take the risk out of it. I'm risk averse when it comes to this stuff, right? So I just take that out of it. So it's not an ego thing and it's not a control thing. It's just that I'm trying to remove any kind of risk that comes into the equation.
Makes sense.
So I get to work with them in every shoot. I get to explain to them how they work best, because sometimes they don't understand that, right? I get to I make sure that we keep the creeps out of the equation, so that might come in there. So it's protection for them. And so look, if you named any one of my models right now, I'll use Jessie as my example. Jessie is my model of the year for 2024, right? So if I were shooting with Jessie right now, I know the first 20 moves she's going to do when we sit down and do a shoot, because I've shot with her over and over and over again. I know her habits. I know her tendencies. I know when she's tired. I know when she's distracted, when she's hungry, when she needs to go to the bathroom. I know everything about it, right? And so So I'm able to go in and say, hey, the last 3 shoots you've gone to this pose, and apparently you think that's a really good one, but you look like you look ignorant doing that. So we're not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to cut that out and let's replace it with something like this. No models get that. They go work with a photographer and they want 3 or 4 good pictures that they can put on their social media or their website. As long as they give them that, then they move on to the next one, right? And so the model is like, well, they didn't tell me I did anything wrong, so I guess I just do the same thing again, and, right? Yeah. So it's just different clothes and different backdrop, but it's the same stuff. And then I didn't touch on it yet, but the third big difference is, so when scouts watch everything that we're doing, right? They know who we are. They're watching all of our pictures. They watch all of our models. Wow. And so when they contact us, they'll say, hey, you got this girl, Jessie. So tell me about Jessie. We might be interested in signing her. My first reaction is she's not ready yet. And they're not used to that because other people will push them out there and say, oh, yeah, they're ready to go.
Opportunity.
So they can put it on their website. They got another one signed, right? Yeah. And so they're not ready yet. So if she's not ready to compete for jobs at the highest level in the world, then she's not ready to go yet. And so I'll tell them she's got to work on this and this and this and this. And that's probably 9 months away or a year away or 6 months away or whatever it might be. Yeah. They agree to, stay in touch with me and we'll see how things progress from there. But I tell the scouts that there's 3 things that have to happen before we're going to have a conversation. My model's got to be able to walk any runway in the world and be able to kill it. Yeah. The second thing is she's got to be able to shoot any print campaign for any designer in the world and be able to just, hold her own on that and really deliver on that. The third thing, which is what knocks a bunch of them out, is they got to be old enough, wise enough, and mature enough that they can get on a plane and travel to the other side of the world all by themselves, maybe not even speak the language, and not lose their mind going out and partying and wasting away the opportunities that have been given to them there, but that they see it as a job and they're there to do that job, right?
Wow. So essentially, so what you're doing is you're not only training them to become a model, but you're also training them in a way to become professionals, right? Right. Is that one of the benefits they get as, being a part of the agency?
Exactly.
It is, right?
Right.
Awesome. And I have one more question real quick. So in the past 10 years that you've been in business, what has been one of the biggest achievements that you've had over the past couple of years?
We've had 8 or 9 that are signed worldwide that they've gone on and, made a living modeling and doing that sort of thing. And so, and I tell our models, we don't have a very competitive environment, right? It's not a backbiting kind of thing or, trying to throw each other under the bus.
Toxic
kind of thing. It's nothing like that. Yeah. They cheer each other on. They root each other on. And so what I've explained to them is when something good happens to one, it's good for all of you. So when our first model signed worldwide, 350 new agencies started following my agency on social media. Wow. They were like, where'd this girl come from? How did we not know about her, right? Yeah. And so now, as a result of her signing, now there's 350 more opportunities for the girls that are here now to be able to be noticed and have a chance up the road.
Nice. And what's your roadmap for the next couple of years? Is there any exciting things coming up for your company? Do you have any events coming up or any big things?
The next big thing is actually here in Houston. So on January 19th, we're partnering up with 40 Acre Conference. Oh wow! And the MLK Dream Week kind of activities that are going on here. So I'm producing the fashion show that kind of ends on that Sunday night, the 19th. Oh yeah. And so that's going to be at Authenticus, I think is the name of the venue. And so I'm producing that. The DX2 models are going to be on the runway for that event. I've got I think 6 or 7 designers that are coming already that'll be a part of that, and they're coming from all over. Wow. And so I'm excited about that, and so that'll be a big one. We've got Fashion Week events that come up in the spring, so we'll be doing that in March, April, that time frame. Summers are usually kind of slow, but there'll be some shows that come up during that. Yeah. And then the fall is really when that's our busiest season.
Awesome. So. And tell me one of the biggest kind of misconceptions that people might have about the industry.
Oh, that everybody's got an eating disorder, that it's a bunch of creeps that are, preying on young ladies and that kind of stuff. It's really not. And so, most of the shows that we go to, the producers are female. So they kind of identify, more with the models on that. we actually have a nutritionist that's part of our team.
Oh, wow.
And so she helps out with making sure that people don't get themselves in trouble. I think one of the other smaller differences that I was talking about was, we may have a model that starts off and there's certain measurements that they have to have when they get to the next level, right? And I don't set those. I don't determine those. That's what my client demands, from anybody that they're going to consider from our agency, right? And so when we're trying to get a young lady and she's, very close to getting to that stage and she needs to get measurements down to a specific level, we want to make sure that that's done in a safe way and the best way possible for everybody. So we have a nutritionist that's part of our team now where she can help walk them through, hey, this is the safest way. This is the healthiest way for us to reduce or to or even increase, to get to the right level so that you can be considered for that kind of stuff. Yeah. And because we're focused more on development instead of gigs, and it's more of a 2 or 3 year kind of commitment for our models to get to a world-class level, I don't need them to sign with me and immediately drop 30 pounds, right? Yeah. We don't do that. It's unrealistic. They basically have 2 to 3 years to get to that ideal measurement. And so it's a slow, steady kind of process and changing lifestyles and habits and that kind of thing. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing that I get from like parents that talk to me and models that are talking to me is, the anxiety and the stress that they have over their body and their measurements and how they look and that sort of thing. And so we try to take that out of the equation as much as possible.
Nice. Awesome. And, with that being said, what is one of the biggest challenges that you faced throughout your career?
It's a generational thing now, I think. So this younger generation, they just don't communicate the way that older generations did, right? And it's difficult for you to get them to a face-to-face conversation and for them to actually open up and share, right? And so it's hard to have a heart-to-heart conversation with people sometimes. They would rather text that message or send it through a DM or something like that, or even send a Snapchat video, right? Than to sit down and look somebody in the eye and have a hard conversation. And so a lot of times, like if we have a model that quits, they don't even tell us they quit. They just disappear, right? Because they don't want to send them the message that says, hey, I'm dropping out. They don't want me to ask why, all those kinds of things. And so they just kind of disappear sometimes. And so that's frustrating because you've put a lot of time and money and effort and energy into somebody and trying to get them to a certain point, and then they just walk away.
Makes sense. Awesome. So that's one of the things, I guess, and that is true that, communication is lacking in this just new generation. What is one tip that you can give to a model that's getting into the industry? What's the best route for them to take if they want to kind of build a career for themselves? Yeah,
obviously, I think that what we do is best, or that's not what,
Yeah, that's what you...
Look, my philosophy on starting a business is you don't go create a business that's just like everybody else's business and do the exact same things. If you're going to create a business, then be unique, be different, set yourself apart, right? And so what we do is so different than everybody else that's out there. I think this is the formula. If you really want to have a long career and at the highest level, I think this is the way to do it because you get coaching and development and insight and feedback along the way constantly and that sort of thing. I've when I first started going to some of the casting calls with our models for fashion shows or whatever, there would be the other models that were there and then our models. And I'd walk in and there'd be, 30 of us that would walk in. And then there'd be 200 other models there. And the other models would go to mine and say, so who's that? Is that your dad? Is it, and they're like, no, he's the owner of our agency. That's my agent. And they're like, your agent comes to this? Wow. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, I haven't seen my agent in 3 years. Wow. And I'm like, how do you manage somebody if you haven't even seen them in 3 years? How do you know what they can do and what they're good at and what you ought to be trying to push for them, in the future? And so that was one of the smaller kind of differences that I saw was that I go to everything.
You're showing up.
And I love it. I love to be there. I like the energy. I want to see my models have success. And if they mess up, I want to see that too, so that we can fix those things, right? If they have a bad day and they have a run-in with somebody backstage, I want to be there so I can walk them through. This is the best way to handle that, you know? But other people don't have that. And so if you really want to have a long career and you want to get to the highest level and you want to do that as quickly as possible, I think the way that we do it is the best way to do that.
Makes sense. Awesome. And what is one of the biggest misconceptions in the models themselves? A lot of people say they have to come in with the mentality of, I want to work and be better, right? But some people also think that, you know, I signed to an agency and, oh my God, all of a sudden I'm just going to blow up, you know, like boom, you know? So tell us like the process, what it takes. What does getting signed mean for a model?
Yeah, so for us, we're pretty transparent about things up front. And so I tell them this is not a race, you know, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Yeah.
This is going to be years before you get to that point, not, you know, a few weeks. And so, you know, and I also tell them that everything is sort of cyclical.
Cyclical, yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so there's a model who is grabbing all the attention right now, right? And 3 months from now, she may be sitting back in the back and somebody else has moved to the forefront, right? And it's all based on designers and what they're looking for, and there's a face that they want or a style that they want or something like that. And once they find them and they start getting some interest and they start having some success, sometimes they think they've arrived and they don't have to listen anymore, right? They don't have to have that coaching anymore. It's like they've got it all figured out after 3 weeks, right? And it's not going to happen that way. If you're going to be world-class at anything, it's going to take some time to get there, right? And so, you know, so we just, you know, every time one of our models has a big successful moment, I'll congratulate them on that, but I'll remind them, stay humble. We're not there yet. As long as you're still signed here and you're not signed up there, you haven't arrived yet. We've still got work to do.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, and that's an interesting mentality too, because it's the same way in business, right? You make a big win, you get too happy, you might blow all your money that you just made, and then you might end up far behind from where you started.
Like sales guy, he hits his quota in month one, so for the next 11 months he coasts.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Well, if you want to be the best, you know, if you want the company to really trust you, you'll have more opportunities than just that one quota thing that hit.
Awesome. And so tell us, what do you think about the current industry right now in the state that it's at? You could start off by telling us about what you think the Houston or the Texas modeling, industry, see where we are, and then what do you think about like Hollywood and New York?
Yeah, so one of the main complaints that I've already kind of mentioned it is that everybody wants everything for free, right? And so we did a shoot recently for a designer, and she used all of our photos, put it out there, and she sold almost all of her inventory within a week of us doing this shoot for them, right? Well, we did the shoot for free, and she, and she's making money, hand over fist on this stuff, right? So why not set up some kind of deal where we get a percentage off of whatever sales come from the shoot that we did? Yeah. Right? Same thing at shows or whatever. We won't do a show for free anymore unless it's like a charity thing. But shoot, sometimes we will if it's like a new client or like a bigger opportunity or something like that. We want to show people what we can do and have them meet our models and that kind of thing. And so occasionally we'll do some free stuff when it comes to shoots. But on shows, you're asking people to take off work. They're going to be there for 8 to 10 hours that day. They may or may not decide to feed them, while they're there. Then they're going to probably travel home and get home at 2 or 3 in the morning. And it's just too much to ask for people to do that for free over and over and over. And our models are not all in one geographic location, right? They're not all in Houston. They're not all in Austin. They're scattered all over the state. So like my model that's the furthest away is 7 hours from me. So when she comes in to do her one-on-one with me, she drives 7 hours in, spends 3 hours with me, and then she drives 7 hours back.
Wow, that's crazy. That's insane, man. And but that's commitment. It's part of being committed to the agency. So that's one of the things. And now, what do you think about New York Fashion Week?
It's a way different ball game.
It's a different ball game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been at New York Fashion Week and Miami Swim Week and those as well. man, the way that the producers and the staff, they treat the models is far different than what they get here. Here, if you just say, hey, let me remind you about the rules, people get insulted. There, they're cussing you out and screaming at you backstage right before you walk on, right? And so it's, and I'm not trying to stereotype that all of them are that way, but many of the ones that I went to, they were reacting the same way on that. So, we try to thicken up their skin along the way and give them honest and, useful critiques and feedback and that sort of thing, so that they're used to some of the abrasive things that may get said to you. But I also tell our girls, look, I'm going to try to keep it fun for you as long as I can make it fun, because when you get to the next level, it's not always going to be that way. And so.
Awesome. Yeah. Makes sense. And do you think that Texas, not Houston, but Texas in general, has the potential to become something like LA or New York?
Yeah, look at Project Runway and look at what was the next top model, stuff that they did. They always had people from Texas, that were represented on there, and sometimes multiple people from Texas. And so it's like we've got the talent here and we've got the people here. We just don't have the rep, that goes along with it. And, so yeah, my biggest frustration is that that designers come into this and they know how to design clothes, but maybe they don't know how to run a business. And part of running a business is to set up a marketing budget, right? And part of your marketing budget is photo shoots and paying for models and stuff like that. I don't blame them for going out and using free people if there's people that are wanting to do that. But most of the people that I've encountered that are willing to do everything, and I'm talking about everything for free, they're not what I would consider a legitimate model that could make it to the next level. They're either too small or the look is off, or something is off there, but they desperately want to be a model, right? And so they're doing everything that they can to try to prove that they can do it. And so it's tough because not everybody is going to be a world-class fashion model, right? But you want people to feel like that they can and they can pursue it and try it. I don't knock people for wanting to try it, but maybe fashion's not the route. Maybe it's more commercial. Maybe it's fitness. Maybe it's something else. But not everybody is intended to put on long evening gowns and go down a runway that in a dress that was designed for somebody that's 5'10". They're just. It's not a match. And so I think there's types of modeling that match up with pretty much every kind of person that's out there. But I just think fashion is a little bit different, right? And so you got to be a certain size. Look, it's just like if I went to the NBA right now, there were days that I felt like when I was younger, I could probably, go hang with some of these guys, right? But if I went there now, I'm not in shape. I'm way too short. I'm way too slow. I don't fit the game plan. So I can't just keep saying, well, I'm just going to keep trying. Right? I'm going to make it one day. Right? And so I keep showing up at tryouts and, those kinds of things. It's not going to happen. And so we kind of have to be realistic with, not everybody can do everything that they hope that they can do. But go try it, but the ones that stick with it for years and years and years and do everything for free, at some point I think you need to
burn out. You
need to kind of see it's probably not going to happen for you.
And that's very interesting. Is that that's the way that people operate nowadays. It's once it's like a standard, everybody thinks, oh, you know what, it's free. So what, let's just try to go and make this happen, make it seem like it's free, and things like that is very interesting when it comes down to like operations. Like you said, there's key players. Everybody has to play the role. And if there's a role lacking, then it's obviously going to show when there's a big event happening. Let's just say the marketing wasn't done right. People are not going to get the right idea of it, and then boom. Right. So your next event I saw in January is you're doing something with Lamborghini, I think?
Lamborghini's going to be putting their cars right down the middle of the runway.
Oh, man.
Plus, it's an immersive venue. Okay. Right, so we're talking the LED panels all on the walls, the projectors up in the ceilings, shooting down. And so the way that, and I'm going there later today to kind of view it and everything.
Nice.
But the way it's been explained to me is any any scenario, any environment that I can think of, they can make it happen.
Nice. Yeah.
And so they've sent me some videos from some past things. It's amazing technology. The best way I guess I can describe it is you've walked into a virtual reality game.
Wow.
And,
so it's an
and
immersive
we're gonna have
experience.
we're gonna have a runway show in the middle of that.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And so it's unlike anything that I've ever done. And I know that anything that our models have done.
Yeah.
This is, and I try to explain to them, this is one of those once in a lifetime kind of shows. Right. And so you may never get a chance to do something like this again.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, man. I can't wait to be there, man.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun.
I know, and that's a good point as well. Creating an experience for not just the models, but also for the people that are coming to the shows, right? Tell me a little bit about providing an experience. How important is that in a business and in an agency? Yeah.
So anytime we've done a show, I want to appeal to as many different audiences as I possibly can.
Of course.
If I only present something that only appeals to fashion people, I'm limited on how many tickets they're going to sell and what kind of response I'm going to get.
Yeah.
By putting Lamborghinis down the middle of the runway, now I've got the gearheads that are wanting to come as well, right? And I know you're heavy into the car stuff,
man,
right?
I love cars, man.
So now you've got the fashion crowd and you've got the car freaks, that are willing to come to it. If you throw in a band on top of that, now you got the music people and you got the car people and you got the fashion people. And so now you've started to create something that kind of starts to mesh all these different people together.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's when you get an experience, right?
Exactly. Makes sense.
Otherwise, I think you just got a private club meeting going on, right? So, so that's the way that I kind of look at it and the way that I've approached it. I also try to make things a little different, a little bit more fun. So the shows that I produce and that I choreograph, I don't want just like one model walking down and turn around and come back. And that's the way almost every show is. And so I'll try to change it up a little bit and have multiple models going at the same time in different ways. And I've done it before where I've had models dancing in front of the crowd and people coming down the runway behind them and, all different kinds of things. I did a show for Hoka, the tennis shoe brand.
Oh, wow.
And so they started doing apparel now. And so I produced their show for them when they unveiled all of their apparel. And so I used a bunch of fitness models that I didn't know. I took a couple of my models with me so they could teach them how to walk and that sort of thing. But I had 2 days to prepare them for doing that. That one was a tough one. They gave me the track ahead of time. It was around 5 minutes long. So the music track, and I had to tell them where every model would be for every second of the entire song because they were going to have spotlights following every model as they came onto the stage. And so they had to program it in ahead of time. And so they had to know where everything was going to be in a room that I've never walked into, on a stage that I haven't seen yet, with models that I haven't met yet. And so all of that stuff had to be done ahead of time.
Those are one of those last minute missions that you just had to make, make happen right
but
there.
But it was so cool. And so I was joking about pyrotechnics and all this kind of stuff. And so they surprised me. So when they did the show, we finished, all these fireworks started going off. And so I was like, killed it.
Done it, right?
But I had professional athletes get on the runway and all kinds of stuff. So
no way.
So we had a good time with that, and it was a big event.
So is that one of like the bigger brands that you've done? Like Hoka, is that one of those?
Yeah.
Is there any other like exciting brands that you've done before in the past?
So we get them to the point where they get to work with the Gucci's and the Armani's and the that kind of stuff. They're not going to call on DX2, right? They have no idea who we are.
Yeah.
But they have their agencies that they work with, so we try to get our models to those agencies so that they have those opportunities.
So you're working with the other agencies on the back end, pretty much, right?
So the IMGs and the Wilhelminas and the Fords and Elite and all of those big brands like that.
Bigger brands, yeah, makes sense. And what's your goal in scaling your company as an agency? I know you said you're focusing on quality, not quantity, right? But what does that mean for you? And
I don't want to get bigger.
You don't want to get bigger.
No, I don't think I can. For me, the way that we do things, it's me, right?
Just
and so I'm the one that's involved in the coaching of every model that's being done. Now, if I can replicate me and I can find somebody else that sees things and understands things and looks at the totality of everything the way I do, then maybe that's an opportunity to grow the business and double or something like that. But so far that person hasn't come around, right? And so So yeah, that's kind of where I think the biggest difference between now and 10 years ago are the level of the potential models that come in to start with me. So some of them now have done a little bit of modeling in the past. Look, if you're a model and you're out there and you're shooting with a photographer every single day and you're doing a couple of runway shows every month, you probably don't want to come to me, right? Because I'm going to slow you down a little bit, right? And at that point, they're used to making some money and they're probably dependent on that money and all that kind of thing. And for us, it's not all gigs are a good gig, right? And so we're pretty selective about what gigs we want to take, and we say no to a lot of them. We want to work with really good designers that have really good looks and pieces for us to model with. When we go to shows, we want to be at the better shows, the bigger shows, that are out there. And so our standards are a little bit higher, and as a result of that, we don't have as many opportunities as the people that just say yes to everything, right? Exactly. Yeah. And so, and then the other piece of that is if they're out there and they're shooting every day with somebody and they're doing a couple of shows a month, they're controlling their own career at that point, and it's really hard once they've had that control for them to hand that over to somebody else and say, okay, I'm out of it, you handle it now.
Yeah.
Right?
Makes sense. Awesome. And and all this commotion and all this craziness going on in modeling industry and everything, and in your life as well, where do you find your peace as an individual? How do you kind of regenerate and kind of tone down a little bit so you stay focused and you don't get too overwhelmed with everything that's going on?
Yeah, I work about 120 to 130 hours a week every week, and I always have. And so life is crazy, for me. For every photo shoot that I do, which is all of them for our agency, for every hour that I shoot, it's 2 hours of editing, right?
Wow.
And so
you do the editing yourself as well?
Yeah, I do all the editing.
Wow.
And so when you start to just think about the volume of just the pictures that go into that, almost every night I fall asleep editing, right? Because it's so late and I'm just laser focused on stuff, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so eventually the eyes just get heavy and I'm out. But the moments that are rewarding for me, we did the grid show here, with Danny Wynn and that sort of thing here in Houston. And I worked with, it was kind of a last minute thing for us. We only had like 2 weeks notice that we were going to be in the show.
Oh, wow.
And so in those 2 weeks, I got together with all of the models except for one before they got here. Yeah. And we went over stuff and just made sure they were ready to go and everything was fine tuned for that. And there was one that I just couldn't get with. The schedules just wouldn't align. Yeah. And I was nervous because it'd been a while, and I was like, how's she going to handle this, And she got out there and she did the best she'd ever done and just nailed it. And to me, those are the moments that are rewarding, right? It's just getting to celebrate with them after it's over and be able to look in their eyes and just say, that's the best, right? You've never done better than that. And to see them light up, with that appreciation, those things are really cool for me. When one of them gets signed, obviously that's a huge celebration. Those are long, drawn out, processes sometimes. And sometimes there's a lot of back and forth over the contracts and negotiating those and that sort of thing. And sometimes it gets heated and, and so those are big moments. When we get to do our own shows, like the one we're doing on the 19th, those are big moments of pride for me because this is not some of my models with some other people up there too. These are my models, right? And so now they get to see exactly what DX2 does and why we're different and how we're different, right? Yeah. And so, so I hear it over and over and over from producers of different shows, and especially casting people. They said, look, we see the models and they come in and they do their stuff, and then there's DX2, right? And then it's just different. Yeah. There's a different energy. There's a different attitude. There's a different urgency, that comes in. And so, we focus on all the little things that maybe nobody else ever thinks of. So we're back there and we're steaming clothes with the designers before the show. When we take stuff off, we're hanging it back on the hanger and putting it on the rack. We're not just dropping it on the floor for somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And so those designers love to work with us, and so we become kind of their go-to models for all their shoots in the future, and for other shows that are in that area or whatever. So the clientele that we built and the designers that we work with, a lot of them have been with me for the full 10 years now, and so it's cool to kind of see how everything progresses.
It's interesting because that's basically another business transaction as well, right? Because essentially what you're doing is you're creating a convenience outlet for the designers, right? You're helping them with the models not only, but you're also helping them with small little like missions that they have here and there, And I think that's an important key in business as well, right? Is creating convenience for every single outlet, or every single like level of business,
And even now, we did so many free things and we poured everything into those early years so that we could set ourselves up to do what we really wanted to do here in the later years, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of times now we don't even have to go to casting events. So they just know who we are and they know what we represent when they know what they're going to get. Yeah. And so people just call and say, send us 20 models, right? Send us 10 models. And so we don't have to travel all over the place and hit all these casting calls and spend all that time and money, to go do those things. Yeah. And so they just say, look, we know what we're going to get with you. And so, so that's good to hear that we have that reputation. Yeah. Last year was a rebuild for us. Right. So it seems like every 3 years or so, models, they've been with me for 3 years. And after 3 years, they're kind of like, okay, either I see the light at the end of the tunnel and I'm getting really close to it, or I'm probably not going to get there. Right. And so at the 3 year mark, that's where the exodus normally happens. Right. So we're either going to get them signed and they're going to be gone to New York or wherever, or they're going to give up on it and quit. Or decide to go freelance it and do everything from there. Yeah. But so last year was kind of a rebuild year for us. And so all the names that everybody knew at DX2, they were gone. Wow. Right? And so it was all new models that were coming in. And, I took note. I'm competitive and sometimes I'm vindictive, but I try not to be, right? But I take note of all those people that doubted us last year. And I'm like, how do you think those girls that you knew ahead of time, how do you think they got to that? Right? We trained them and we taught them how to get to that point where you believed in them so much. Yeah. But now they're gone. But now you're doubting that I could do it again with all these other people that are coming in. Yeah. Right? And so last year was a little bit of a down year for us. Not much. But like, one of the Fashion Week events, 2 years ago, we had 14 models in it. Last year, we had 4. Wow. Right? Yeah. And what people didn't know was that when we went to the casting event for that, most of those girls had signed in 2 weeks prior to that casting. Wow. And they'd had 10 minutes of training with me before they went into it. Wow. Right? Wow. Yeah. So they casted them, and then there was like a 2 or 3 month gap period there. So by the time those girls actually showed up at the shows, they were far better than they were when they went to the casting event, and so they don't, I can't blame them. The casting people, they look at what's in front of them right now. I look at them and I'm seeing what they're going to be like in 2 or 3 months. Yeah. Right. When the show actually happens. And
so one of the last questions that I have, to cover today is, what are your thoughts on, building connections? We know that in business, it's very important to build connections and maintain them, right? Right. And in order to build a good connection, what are some of the things that you kind of would say, or to kind of go back in terms of building relationships with people? How do you take that approach, and do you value connections? Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you go to any of our models on our team right now, and you say, what matters most to Doug, right? Every one of them will talk about integrity, character, honesty, trustworthiness, right? It's those things. It's not a killer walk or getting published this many times or anything like that. It's the who you are things, right? And so So when we work with clients, we treat them respectfully, no matter what the situation. Mm-hmm. We're going to be honest with them. If we think that we can give them exactly what they're looking for, mm-hmm. then we'll tell them that. If we think that there might be an issue with what they're asking for and what we can deliver, mm-hmm. we'll tell them that. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. If I tell them, hey, you'll get your photos back by this day, mm-hmm. they're going to get their photos back by that day if it kills me. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I always want to be able to keep my word, mm-hmm. no matter what. Mm-hmm. And so if I commit to somebody that something's going to happen and it's going to happen on this day at this time, mm-hmm. it will happen on that day at that time or before. Wow. Right. Mm-hmm. And so no matter what, that it will happen no matter what. And so our models have come to kind of understand mm-hmm. that's the way that I operate, which means that's the way they have to operate
as well. Yeah.
And so, mm-hmm. We talk about being grateful, for every opportunity that comes our way. We can't take it for granted. Mm-hmm. For example, last year was the rebuilding year. Mm-hmm. We didn't get the same opportunities last year that we got the year before mm-hmm. because of that. Mm-hmm. So it can either cause you to be grateful mm-hmm. or it can cause you to be resentful. Mm-hmm. For me, it's a mix. Mentality. Right? Right? I'm grateful for all those big things that we've been able to do. Mm-hmm. I'm resentful for the people that didn't believe we could do it last year. Mm-hmm. But in 2025, you better watch out because now I've had them. Yeah. Right. I've had mm-hmm. them for a while. Yeah. So they're going to be ready. And in my opinion, mm-hmm. I think the team that I have in 2025 mm-hmm. has the potential to be the best team that I've ever had in 10 years. Wow. And I had one team that had like 6 models that signed. Wow. Right. Already. And so,
you think it's bigger than that?
Yeah, I think they're going to be better.
Wow, man, we can't wait to see it. And do you have any closing remarks just to close out the podcast, man?
First of all, I just appreciate the opportunity. I hope people will come, especially here in Houston, and come see us on the 19th and see that show. DX2_fashion_models is our Instagram. Mm-hmm. And so we've got some ads up that are on there now. Mm-hmm. I've got some new content that I'm creating mm-hmm. for that as well. Mm-hmm. We'll get the link up on there to get tickets and that sort of thing as well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the modeling industry, it's not for everybody. I know that going in. I know it's only a small percentage of people that will ever be able to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And so I had a guy when I was a kid that invested into me mm-hmm. and helped me try to achieve my dream. Mm-hmm. And he did it without any kind of wanting to be paid back or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And so, so it made this impression on me that even then I was like, man, when I get older, mm-hmm. if I have the means and the opportunity, I want to do that for other people. Wow. Right. Wow. And so that's why I do my agency. Mm-hmm. We don't look, this will shock everybody probably. Mm-hmm. We don't make a profit. Wow. We've never made a profit. Wow. Right? We spend far more on travel and training and all the stuff that we do. Mm-hmm. We just don't make a profit. Mm-hmm. And I'm not in it for the money. And if I were in it for the money, we would have closed down 9 years ago. Right? But we're in it to try to change lives and help people achieve their dreams and that kind of thing. Or at least that's my goal. Mm-hmm. And so when you ask about replicating me, mm-hmm. that's a piece of it. It's hard, right? Mm-hmm. I just know I'm going to spend more money than I'm going to bring in. Mm-hmm. And it's got to be worth it because of the people that I'm trying to help. Yeah, makes sense. I got that. Well, man, that's an amazing purpose to have, because a lot of people have kind of ill intentions with certain things, and it's so easy to get distracted in different ways, either with the money or whatever it is, right? Yeah. But it's interesting that you have a clear, distinct direction, And I think that a lot of people will respect that as well, because even in business as well, even in sales, there's all these people that kind of have the mentality of, oh, I need to find a way to make the biggest buck, right? Yeah. Then you have the people that say, okay, I want to build the relationship and just do good and just hope that we can do something in the future, right? And that's somebody that has like goodwill and good intention, Yeah. And I feel like that'll take you a long way, Yeah. So that's really awesome. Other than that, man, make sure you guys check out the podcast, Highline Executives Official. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, DX2 Doug. And we'll see you guys at the event. I'm going to post a flyer here in the comments. And shout out Heart of Houston as well for popping out. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.